I walked through the front door after 3 days of brutal final exams, my backpack heavy with textbooks and my mind buzzing with exhaustion. All I wanted was to collapse on my childhood bed and start counting down the hours until Saturday, my 21st birthday celebration that my parents had been planning for months. Instead, I stepped into absolute chaos. My 16-year-old sister Emma was shrieking at the top of her lungs in the living room, tears streaming down her face as she waved her phone frantically. Mom stood there wringing her hands, looking like she might cry herself. Dad paced back and forth, running his fingers through his graying hair. The moment they saw me, everything went silent. Mom's voice cracked as she delivered the words that would change everything between us forever. They were canceling my Milestone birthday party because Emma's school dance had been rescheduled to the same night, and she threatened to run away if they didn't prioritize her crisis. Standing there in the doorway, still clutching my car keys, I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. This couldn't be happening, not again. But as I looked around at my family's guilty faces, the familiar pattern became crystal clear. This was the same sister who had thrown a tantrum on Christmas morning when she was 12 because my new laptop was supposedly nicer than her tablet. My parents made me exchange it for a cheaper model to keep the peace. The same sister who insisted we cut our family vacation to Yellowstone short because she missed her friends and wanted to go home early. My high school graduation party turned into damage control when Emma decided she hated the cake flavor and locked herself in the bathroom sobbing until everyone focused on comforting her instead of celebrating my achievement. "Jaden, honey, please try to understand," Mom said, her voice shaking as she twisted her wedding ring. "Emma's going through such a difficult time right now. This dance means everything to her social life." Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably. "We already called Giuseppe's restaurant and canceled the reservation. Your Aunt Linda and Uncle Robert understand completely. We can do something nice for you next weekend instead." Emma sat curled up on the couch, her blonde hair falling across her face in perfectly calculated waves. She peeked up at me through her fingers, and I caught the slightest smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. She knew she had won. Again. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, my girlfriend of 2 years. "Can't wait for tomorrow night. My dress came in, and it's perfect. Love you." I stared at the message, feeling my chest tighten. How was I supposed to tell her that the celebration we had planned for weeks was suddenly canceled because my teenage sister couldn't handle a scheduling conflict like a normal person? "You specifically promised me this birthday would be different," I said quietly, looking directly at my parents. "You said after missing so many things because of Emma's drama, my 21st would be special. You gave me your word." "Things change, sweetheart," Mom replied, using the same tone she'd used when I was 8 and disappointed. "Family has to stick together and support each other." "What about supporting me?" I asked. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew the answer. Emma's sobs grew louder. "See, he's being mean to me. This is exactly why I need you both there tomorrow night. I can't handle this stress alone." I walked upstairs to my room and closed the door. My 21st birthday decorations were still spread across my desk, from when Mom and I had been planning the details just last week. The guest list, the menu choices, the timeline for the evening, all of it meaningless now. Sarah answered on the first ring. "Jaden, how did finals go? Are you excited for tomorrow?" "Sarah, I need to tell you something." I began then explain the entire situation. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. "They canceled your 21st birthday party for Emma's school dance," she finally said. "Jaden, that's not normal. That's not how families should work." After we hung up, I sat on my bed staring at the ceiling. 21 years old, and I still felt like an afterthought in my own family. But this time felt different. This time, something deep in my chest was changing from disappointment into something harder. I opened my laptop and started browsing through old family photos. There it was, documented in digital memories, the pattern I'd been too loyal to see clearly before. Emma in the center of every picture, every celebration, every family moment. Me standing slightly to the side, smiling dutifully while the world revolved around her needs. The climactic twist hit me like cold water when I decided to check the family computer downstairs for old birthday photos. What I found instead in Dad's email account that he'd forgotten to log out of was a receipt. A receipt for $857 at Nordstrom dated 3 days ago. Emma's dress shopping trip for the dance. The same parents who claimed they couldn't afford the birthday dinner I'd requested had already invested nearly $1,000 in my sister's one-night event. I scrolled through more emails and found the truth that made my blood run cold. They had planned to prioritize Emma's dance all along. The reservation at Giuseppe's had been made tentatively with a note that they might need to cancel. They had never intended to follow through with my birthday celebration. Sunday morning arrived gray and drizzly, matching my mood perfectly. I found my parents in the kitchen sharing coffee and scanning their phones like nothing had happened. Emma was still asleep, probably exhausted from her victory the night before. "Mom, Dad, can we talk?" I asked, pouring myself orange juice from the refrigerator. They exchanged glances and I could see them preparing their defensive positions. "Jaden, if this is about yesterday, we've already explained our reasoning," Dad said, not looking up from his tablet. "Emma's emotional well-being has to be our priority right now." "When exactly did my emotional well-being stop mattering?" I asked calmly. "I'm curious about the specific moment you both decided I was mature enough to handle constant disappointment, but Emma wasn't strong enough to handle minor inconveniences." Mom set down her coffee mug harder than necessary. "That's not fair, and you know it. Emma is going through a sensitive phase. She needs extra support right now." "She's been going through a sensitive phase for 16 years, I replied. "When does it end?" "When does she learn to handle disappointment like every other human being on the planet?" "You're being selfish," Mom snapped, and I saw a flash of the anger she usually reserved for when Emma didn't get her way. "This is about more than just a birthday party." "You're absolutely right," I said. "It is about more than a birthday party. It's about the fact that you spent almost $900 on Emma's dress shopping while telling me you couldn't afford my birthday dinner. It's about the pattern that's been going on for years." Dad's face flushed red. "How do you know about that receipt?" "Your email was open on the family computer," I said simply, "along with all the other emails where you made tentative plans for my birthday with built-in escape clauses. You never intended to follow through." The kitchen fell silent except for the humming of the refrigerator. Neither of them denied it. Emma wandered downstairs in her pajamas, her hair perfectly messy in that way that took 20 minutes to achieve. "What's everyone fighting about now?" she asked with an exaggerated yawn. "Jaden's upset about his birthday situation." Mom explained, immediately shifting into protective mode around Emma. "Seriously?" Emma rolled her eyes and opened the pantry. "You're still whining about the God, Jaden, you're so selfish. This dance is important for my social life. Your birthday is just another day." Something snapped inside my chest. "Another day, Emma. It's my 21st birthday. It happens once in a lifetime." "So does senior year," she shot back. "And my dance is way more important than some stupid dinner where you get drunk legally for the first time." I looked at my parents, waiting for them to correct her, to defend me, to show even a shred of awareness about how wrong this entire situation was. Instead, Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Emma, maybe you could phrase that more kindly," he said weakly. "More kindly," I repeated. "That's your response to her calling my Milestone birthday stupid?" My phone rang and Grandpa Thomas's name appeared on the screen. I stepped outside to take the call, grateful for an escape from the toxic atmosphere in the kitchen. "Jaden, boy, how are you holding up?" His voice was warm and concerned. "Your grandmother would be rolling in her grave if she knew what those parents of yours pulled yesterday. You heard about that? Your mother called me this morning trying to explain why you weren't going to be at family dinner next Sunday. Something about you being too busy with college work." He paused. But your Aunt Linda already told me the real story about your birthday getting canceled. We talked for 30 minutes, and for the first time in days, I felt like someone was listening to me with genuine concern. Grandpa Thomas had raised 4 children and 10 grandchildren. He understood family dynamics better than anyone I knew. Jaden. He said before we hung up, sometimes loving someone means refusing to enable their worst behaviors. Your parents think they're helping Emma by giving in to her every demand, but they're actually hurting her. And they're definitely hurting you. After the call, I sat on the front porch steps thinking about his words. When I went back inside, I found Emma in the family room watching television. Emma, I said, sitting down across from her, "Can I ask you something honestly?" She muted the TV and looked at me suspiciously. "What? Do you actually think it's fair that my birthday got canceled for your dance?" For just a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Uncertainty, maybe even guilt. But it disappeared quickly, replaced by her usual defiance. "Yes, I do think it's fair," she said. "My social life is more important than your birthday party. You'll have other birthdays. I might not get another chance to be popular in high school. And what makes your social life more valuable than my feelings? Because I'm the one who still lives here," she said with shocking honesty. "Because I'm the one they have to deal with every day. You're going to graduate college and move away anyway, but they're stuck with me for 2 more years, so they have to keep me happy." The truth of her words hit me like a physical blow. She was absolutely right, and she knew it. My parents had made a calculated decision to prioritize the family member who would make their lives more difficult if unhappy. I was about to respond when I heard Mom's voice from the kitchen talking on the phone. "No, Linda Jaden won't be at Sunday dinner. He's been so busy with college, you know how it is." "Yes, Emma's dance went beautifully. She looked like a princess." The lie came so easily, so smoothly, that I realized this wasn't the first time. I walked quietly toward the kitchen and listened to more of the conversation. "Oh, Jaden understands completely. He's always been so mature about these things. Emma just needs more support right now during her teenage years." I pulled out my phone and started texting my cousins and aunts. Within an hour, I had the truth. My parents had been lying to extended family members for years, claiming I was too busy with college activities to attend family gatherings. In reality, those same weekends had been dedicated to Emma's social events, competitions, and various teenage dramas. The final twist came when I found printed emails in Dad's home office conversations between him and Mom about my college fund. Money that was supposed to be set aside for my education had been gradually used for Emma's private tutoring dance lessons and expensive social activities. They had been planning to tell me the fund was smaller than expected due to market fluctuations. My 21st birthday wasn't just canceled. It was sacrificed on the altar of years of deception and misplaced priorities. Sunday evening, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of wallowing in anger or trying to convince my parents to see reason, I started planning my escape. Not a dramatic, door-slamming exit, but a strategic withdrawal from a family dynamic that was destroying my self-worth. The first call I made was to Grandpa Thomas. "I've been thinking about what you said," I told him. "About sometimes loving someone, meaning you refuse to enable their worst behaviors." "Go on," he said carefully. "I think I need to step away from this family for a while. Not permanently, but long enough for them to understand the consequences of their choices." There was a long pause. "What do you need, Jaden?" "Honestly, some financial help getting started on my own. I can cover most of my expenses, but the security deposit for an apartment is more than I have saved right now." "Consider it done," he said without hesitation. "Your grandmother left money specifically for her grandchildren's emergencies. I think she'd consider this an emergency of the soul." Monday morning, while my parents were at work and Emma was at school, I drove to 3 different apartment complexes near my college campus. The third one, Cedar Creek Apartments, had a studio unit available immediately. It was small but clean, with enough space for a bed, desk, and kitchenette. The manager, a kind woman named Carol, was understanding when I explained I was a college student transitioning to full independence. Lot of young people your age figuring out family boundaries, she said knowingly. Sometimes you have to create your own peace. Tuesday, I interviewed at Tech World Electronics, a store 15 minutes from campus. The manager, Dave, was a guy in his 30s who'd worked his way through college in retail. You have good grades, reliable transportation, and you can work evenings and weekends, he said after reviewing my application. When can you start? Immediately, Mar, I replied. I like that answer. You're hired. Wednesday and Thursday were spent carefully moving my belongings. I started with items my family wouldn't immediately notice: clothes from the back of my closet books, personal documents, my laptop, and electronics. I worked systematically like I was preparing for a long deployment rather than an emotional breakdown. Sarah helped me Thursday evening, bringing boxes and moral support. Are you sure about this? She asked as we loaded my dresser into her SUV. It feels so final. It needs to feel final, I replied. They need to understand that actions have consequences. I can't keep being the family member who absorbs all the disappointment so everyone else can stay comfortable. Thursday night, I discovered more evidence in the family computer. Email conversations between mom and her sister revealed that extended family members had been asking questions about my absence from gatherings for months. Several relatives had specifically requested that I be invited to upcoming events. But mom had been deflecting with vague excuses about my college schedule. Even more revealing was a conversation between mom and dad about Emma's behavior at school. Her guidance counselor had apparently called 3 times, requesting a parent conference about Emma's difficulty accepting constructive feedback and her tendency to have emotional outbursts when expectations aren't met immediately. My parents had been avoiding that meeting for 6 weeks. Friday morning brought the most shocking discovery yet. I found a voicemail on the house phone from Emma's math teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez. Emma had been failing algebra for 2 months, largely because she refused to complete homework assignments she deemed too hard or boring. The teacher's frustrated tone made it clear this wasn't the first time she'd tried to contact my parents. I realized that while my parents were so focused on protecting Emma's feelings, they were ignoring the actual support and structure she needed to succeed. Their enabling wasn't just hurting me, it was setting Emma up for failure in the real world. Friday afternoon, while my family thought I was at the library studying for finals, I signed the lease for my studio apartment and received my first paycheck from Tech World Electronics. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of accomplishment that wasn't overshadowed by family drama. The climactic twist came Friday evening when I was packing the last of my belongings. My phone buzzed with a text from my cousin Ashley. Jaden, your mom called my mom today crying. She said Emma has been diagnosed with severe anxiety disorder and might need to be hospitalized if the family stress doesn't improve. Is that true? I immediately called Emma's school and asked to speak with her guidance counselor, Mrs. Patterson. After explaining that I was Emma's brother and concerned about her well-being, she was willing to share general information. Emma's doing fine academically and socially, Mrs. Patterson said. She's never mentioned any anxiety issues to me, and she certainly hasn't been referred for any psychological evaluation. Is there a specific concern? My parents were lying. They were manufacturing a mental health crisis to manipulate me into staying and continuing to enable Emma's behavior. The realization was breathtaking in its audacity and heartbreaking in its implications. That night, I finished packing my car with the last of my belongings. Tomorrow, I would drive to my new apartment and begin the process of teaching my family what life looked like without their emotional punching bag. Saturday morning, I left the house at 7 a.m. while everyone was still asleep. No dramatic confrontation, no angry speeches, no slammed doors. I simply collected my remaining belongings and drove to my new life. My studio apartment felt enormous compared to my childhood bedroom. For the first time in years, every item in my living space belonged to me and reflected my choices. I arranged my books on the small shelf, set up my computer, at the desk near the window and made the bed with sheets Sarah had helped me pick out. The silence was profound and peaceful. My first shift at Tech World Electronics was that afternoon. Dave introduced me to the team, and I quickly discovered that retail work suited me better than I'd expected. Helping customers solve technology problems felt satisfying in a way that family drama never did. There were clear problems with clear solutions, and everyone involved wanted positive outcomes. "You're a natural at this," said Jennifer, a coworker who'd been there for 3 years. "Most college kids struggle with customer service, but you actually seem to enjoy it." "It's nice when people appreciate your help," I replied honestly. Sunday afternoon brought the first wave of contact attempts from my family. My phone buzzed constantly with texts and calls, but I let them all go to voicemail. I wasn't ready for conversation yet. I needed time to establish my new routine and mental space. The messages started predictably. "Mom, Jaden, where are you?" "Your bed wasn't slept in last night." "Dad, son, call us immediately. We're worried sick." "Emma, Jaden, this isn't funny anymore. Come home." By Sunday evening, the tone had shifted. "Mom, please call us. We can work this out like a family." "Dad, your mother is beside herself with worry. Whatever we did wrong, we can fix it." Emma, "Seriously, I need help with my algebra homework and you're not here." Monday brought the first signs of real consequence. Emma called me directly, and I decided to answer. "Jaden, you have to come home," she said without preamble. "Mom and Dad are freaking out, and I have a huge history test tomorrow that I haven't studied for." "Emma," I said calmly, "I'm not coming home, and I'm not helping you with your test." "What do you mean you're not coming home? You live here." "Not anymore. I have my own apartment now." The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. "You can't just leave," she finally said, and for the first time her voice sounded genuinely shaken rather than demanding. "I can, and I did. You wanted Mom and Dad to prioritize you above everything else. Now you have their complete attention." "That's not what I meant." "That's exactly what you meant, Emma. And now you're getting exactly what you asked for." Tuesday brought news from my cousin Ashley that the family was struggling with Emma's first major assignment crisis without me there to help. She'd apparently had a complete meltdown when she couldn't understand her algebra homework and demanded that Mom and Dad solve the problems for her. "Your dad spent 3 hours trying to figure out quadratic equations." Ashley laughed. "He finally had to call a tutoring service at 9 p.m. Wednesday, Sarah invited me to dinner with her family. Her parents, Robert and Patricia, had always been kind to me, but this felt different. They asked genuine questions about my studies, my new job, my plans for the future. Her younger brother, Kevin, who was Emma's age, helped clear dishes without being asked and participated in family conversation without dominating it. This is what normal family dinners look like. I realized watching the easy give and take of conversation where everyone's opinions mattered. Thursday brought escalation from my family. Dad showed up at my college campus asking around until he found someone who knew where I worked. He appeared at Tech World Electronics just before my shift ended looking haggard and desperate. "Jaden, this has gone far enough," he said, approaching my register. "You're tearing this family apart." "I'm not tearing anything apart, Dad. I'm just not holding it together anymore. Your mother hasn't stopped crying for 3 days. Emma's grades are falling apart without your help. This isn't what family does to each other." "You're right," I replied calmly. Family doesn't cancel someone's 21st birthday for a teenager's social event. Family doesn't lie to relatives for years to cover up favoritism. Family doesn't steal from college funds to pay for one child's extracurricular activities. Dad's face went pale. "How did you—" "It doesn't matter how I know. What matters is that it happened, and you never planned to tell me the truth." Dave appeared at my shoulder, professional but protective. "Is there a problem here, Jaden?" "No problem," I said. "My father was just leaving." The climactic twist came Thursday night when my cousin Ryan called with alarming news. "Dude, your sister showed up at my high school today during lunch," he said. "She was telling people that your parents are getting divorced because you abandoned the family." She's making it sound like you're some kind of monster who destroyed everything. The lie was spreading through Emma's school and into the community. My parents' friends and neighbors were hearing a completely fabricated version of events where I was the villain who cruelly abandoned my suffering family. Emma had found a way to make herself the victim even of my absence, and she was using it to generate sympathy and attention from her peers. But more than that, I realized Emma genuinely believed her own narrative. In her mind, my refusal to absorb her emotional chaos was the same as abandoning her. She had never learned that other people had needs and boundaries because my parents had never required her to consider anyone else's well-being. For the first time since leaving, I felt truly sad rather than angry. My family wasn't just toxic, they were lost. Friday morning brought the first call from Emma's school. Mom's frantic voicemail was barely coherent. "Jaden, please call me back. Emma's principal wants to meet with us about her behavior, and she's saying things. Just please call me." I didn't call back, but I did reach out to Mrs. Patterson, Emma's guidance counselor, who remembered our previous conversation. "I'm calling because I'm concerned about my sister's well-being," I explained. "I've moved out of the family home, and I'm hearing that she's struggling with the adjustment." "That's very mature of you to check in," Mrs. Patterson said. "Emma has been having some difficulties this week. She's been telling quite dramatic stories about family trauma, and her teachers are concerned about the attention-seeking behavior." "What kind of stories?" "She's claiming that her parents are neglecting her since her older brother left home. She says she's not eating properly and that no one helps her with homework anymore. But when we offered to connect her with free tutoring services and the school lunch program, she became angry and said we didn't understand her situation." The picture was becoming clearer. Emma was trying to recreate the crisis dynamic that had always gotten her attention, but she was doing it in an environment where adults were trained to recognize manipulation tactics. Monday afternoon, Sarah's mom, Patricia, called me with concerning news. "Jaden, honey, I thought you should know that your mother came to my workplace today." She seemed very upset and wanted to talk about family counseling resources. She kept saying that Emma's been having severe anxiety attacks since you left. But the most revealing call came Tuesday from my Aunt Linda. "Jaden, I need to ask you something directly, and I want you to give me an honest answer. Are your parents telling the truth about Emma having diagnosed anxiety disorder? What exactly are they saying?" "Your mother called me crying yesterday, saying Emma's therapist recommended family intervention because Emma's been having panic attacks and threatening self-harm since you moved out. She wanted me to call you and convince you to come home for Emma's mental health." Aunt Linda, Emma doesn't have a therapist. She's never been diagnosed with anxiety disorder. I checked with her school counselor myself. The silence on the other end was deafening. "They're lying about their daughter having mental health problems to manipulate me into coming home," I continued, "and they're using you and other family members to do their emotional manipulation for them." "Oh my God," Aunt Linda whispered. "Jaden, I'm so sorry, I had no idea." Wednesday brought the crisis that would change everything. I was working the evening shift at Tech World Electronics when Dave approached my register with a concerned expression. "Jaden, there's a young woman here causing a disturbance. She says she's your sister and demands to speak with you." I looked toward the front of the store and saw Emma standing near the entrance, her hair disheveled and her makeup smeared. She was crying loudly enough that other customers were staring. "Emma," I said, walking over to her, "you can't be here. This is my workplace." "I don't care," she shouted loud enough that the entire store could hear. "You have to come home. Everything is falling apart, and it's all your fault." "Lower your voice," I said quietly. "You're disturbing other customers." "I don't care about other customers. This is more important. Mom and Dad are fighting all the time now. My grades are terrible, and everyone at school thinks I'm a freak because my family is broken." Dave appeared beside us, calm but firm. "Miss, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice or leave the store." "You can't make me leave, he's my brother." "Actually, I can," Dave replied. "This is private property and you're disturbing our business." "Jaden, why don't you take a 15-minute break and handle this outside?" Emma followed me to the parking lot, still crying and now shivering in the evening air. Emma, how did you even get here? I asked, suddenly realizing she didn't have a driver's license. I took an Uber with Mom's credit card. She sniffled. I had to find you because everything at home is horrible, and no one will help me with anything. What specifically is happening at home? Mom cries all the time, and Dad keeps having conference calls with people about work stress. They're too upset to help me with homework, or drive me places, or listen to my problems. I failed my algebra test yesterday, and my history paper is due Friday, and I don't understand any of it. For the first time, I saw genuine vulnerability in my sister's face. Not the calculated manipulation I was used to, but real fear and confusion. Emma? I said gently, this is what I was trying to tell you. When you demand that everyone else solve your problems for you, you never learn how to handle challenges yourself. Now, when you actually need those skills, you don't have them. But that's not fair, she wailed. I'm only 16. I'm not supposed to know how to do everything by myself. You're right. 16-year-olds shouldn't have to handle everything alone. But they should be learning how to handle age-appropriate responsibilities, with guidance, not having other people do everything for them. The climactic twist came when Emma's phone rang. It was Mom, and Emma answered on speakerphone without thinking. Emma rose. Where are you? The school called and said you never showed up for your afternoon classes. I'm with Jaden. I found him at his work. You skipped school to track down your brother Emma. This is exactly the kind of behavior that's going to get social services involved in our family. I stared at Emma, who had gone pale. Social services? Mrs. Patterson called Mom and Dad yesterday. Emma whispered, no longer crying. She said if my behavior doesn't improve, and if they can't prove they're providing adequate support, the school might have to file a report about educational neglect. The truth hit me like cold water. Emma's dramatic stories at school had triggered mandatory reporting protocols. The school officials weren't just concerned about her attention-seeking behavior, they were questioning whether her parents were fulfilling their basic responsibilities. My family wasn't just falling apart emotionally, they were facing potential legal consequences for their years of enabling dysfunction. Thursday morning brought the phone call that would force everything into the open. I was getting ready for my morning classes when my phone rang with an unknown local number. This is Mrs. Patterson from Lincoln High School. I'm calling because your sister Emma has listed you as an emergency contact, and we need to discuss some serious concerns about her well-being and academic performance. What kind of concerns? Emma has missed 6 days of school in the past 2 weeks, and when she does attend, her teachers report that she's disruptive, emotionally volatile, and unable to complete basic assignments. Yesterday, she had what I can only describe as a complete breakdown in her English class when asked to turn in a paper she hadn't written. Mrs. Patterson continued. More concerning is that she's been telling staff members that her parents are too distressed to help her with schoolwork and that she's not getting adequate food or support at home since you left. We're required to investigate these claims. My stomach dropped. Mrs. Patterson, I need you to understand something important. My parents aren't neglecting Emma. They're actually the opposite. They've been enabling her for years by removing all consequences and solving all her problems for her. What you're seeing now is what happens when Emma actually has to face normal expectations without someone rescuing her. That's a very mature perspective, Jaden. Would you be willing to participate in a family conference to help us understand the situation better? I agreed to the meeting scheduled for Friday afternoon. But first I needed to understand exactly what was happening at home. I called Grandpa Thomas, who had been getting regular updates from other family members. It's worse than you know, he said bluntly. Your father nearly lost a major client yesterday because Emma interrupted his virtual presentation, crying about homework. Your mother called in sick to work 3 times this week because Emma refused to go to school unless someone stayed home with her. And Emma, your cousin Ashley saw her at the mall yesterday afternoon during school hours using your mother's credit card to buy makeup. She told the store clerk that she was depressed about her family situation and retail therapy was the only thing helping her cope. Thursday evening, I received a text from my cousin Ryan. Dude, your parents showed up at my mom's house tonight. They want the whole family to do an intervention to convince you to come home. Everyone's pretty uncomfortable about it. The family meeting that followed would become legendary in our extended family's history. According to Aunt Linda, who called me immediately afterward, my parents had presented a completely fictional narrative about my departure. In their version, I had left home suddenly and without explanation, abandoning a family in crisis just when they needed me most. They claimed Emma was suffering from severe anxiety and depression due to my abandonment, and that only my return could stabilize the family. Grandpa Thomas had apparently listened to this presentation in silence before asking a single question. Mark, can you explain why Jaden's 21st birthday celebration was canceled? The truth had come out in painful detail. Uncle Robert, who worked in banking, had been particularly disturbed by the revelation about my college fund being used for Emma's activities. What you're describing isn't family loyalty, Grandpa Thomas had told my parents. It's financial abuse and emotional manipulation, and you want us to help you continue it. Friday afternoon, I walked into Lincoln High School for the family conference. My parents were already there, sitting stiffly in the guidance office. Emma was absent, reportedly too upset to attend. Mrs. Patterson introduced me to the school social worker, Ms. Chen, who would be leading the discussion. Jaden, thank you for coming, Ms. Chen said. We're trying to understand Emma's home situation and determine what support she needs to succeed academically. For the next hour, I listened to my parents present their version of recent events. In their narrative, I was a troubled young adult who had suddenly become rebellious and selfish, abandoning my family during a difficult period. Emma was a victim of my poor choices, struggling with anxiety and depression that required family unity to overcome. When it was my turn to speak, I presented facts rather than emotions. I showed Ms. Chen copies of the emails proving my parents had planned to cancel my birthday celebration. I provided documentation about the misuse of my college fund. I explained the pattern of enabling behavior that had prevented Emma from developing basic life skills. What I'm hearing, Ms. Chen said carefully, is that Emma has been accustomed to having problems solved for her rather than learning to solve them herself. Is that accurate? That's exactly accurate, I replied. And now that I'm not available to be her emotional support system, she's discovering that she lacks the skills to handle normal teenage responsibilities. My parents' faces had gone increasingly pale during my presentation. The school's concern, Ms. Chen continued, is that Emma's current coping strategies are becoming increasingly maladaptive. Skipping school, having public emotional outbursts, and making dramatic claims about family neglect aren't sustainable behaviors. The climactic twist came when Ms. Chen revealed the full scope of Emma's behavior at school. Yesterday, Emma was found in the parking lot during lunch period attempting to damage another student's car because that student had been chosen for a part in the school play that Emma wanted. When confronted by security, Emma claimed she was having a mental breakdown due to family trauma and couldn't be held responsible for her actions. The room fell silent. This incident, combined with her academic failures and attendance problems, has prompted us to recommend immediate intervention. Ms. Chen continued, "We're referring Emma for psychological evaluation and requiring family therapy as a condition of her continued enrollment." My mother began crying. Dad sat frozen, apparently realizing for the first time that their enabling had created genuine consequences. Moreover, Ms. Chen added, "If Emma's behavior doesn't improve significantly within 30 days, we'll need to consider alternative educational placements that can provide more intensive behavioral support." As we left the school, I felt a complex mixture of vindication and sadness. My decision to leave had forced the truth into the open, but the price was watching my family face the consequences of years of dysfunction. That evening, my phone rang. It was Emma. "Jaden, she said, her voice small and frightened. I think I'm in real trouble this time. For the first time in our relationship, my sister was ready to have an honest conversation about her behavior and its consequences. But it had taken the threat of losing everything for her to reach that point. Saturday morning brought the call I'd been both expecting and dreading. It was Mom, and for the first time in weeks, her voice sounded calm rather than frantic. Jaden, honey, would you be willing to come home for dinner tomorrow, not to move back, but just to talk as a family? We've all learned some things this week that we need to discuss. I agreed, but with conditions. The conversation would focus on family patterns and changes, not on guilt tripping me to return. Emma would participate honestly rather than dramatically, and there would be no promises about quick fixes or instant forgiveness. Sunday dinner at my childhood home felt surreal. The kitchen looked the same, but the family dynamics had shifted dramatically. Dad appeared exhausted with dark circles under his eyes from stress. Mom seemed smaller, somehow deflated of her usual protective energy around Emma. And Emma herself sat quietly at the table, a stark contrast to her usual commanding presence. The family therapist we met with yesterday helped us understand some things. Dad began carefully about how we've been handling conflicts and responsibilities in this house. Dr. Martinez, the family therapist, had apparently been quite direct about the dysfunction. According to Mom, she described their family pattern as crisis-oriented enabling, where Emma's emotional outbursts had trained everyone to prioritize her immediate comfort over long-term growth and family health. She said that by always rescuing Emma from consequences, we never taught her how to handle disappointment or develop resilience. Mom said, her voice shaking slightly. And she said that by always expecting you to absorb Emma's overflow emotions, we put you in a parental role that wasn't fair or healthy. Or, Emma spoke up for the first time, her voice barely above a whisper. Jaden, I didn't understand that my behavior was hurting you. I thought you were supposed to help me with everything because you're older and smarter. Emma, I replied gently, helping you occasionally is normal for siblings. But I was basically functioning as your emotional support system and backup parent. That's not healthy for either of us. Harsh. The conversation that followed was unlike any we'd had as a family. For the first time, we discussed specific incidents and patterns rather than just emotions and accusations. Emma admitted that she'd been aware her behavior was manipulative, but hadn't understood the full impact on the family. When you left, she said, tears starting to flow. I realized that I don't actually know how to do basic things by myself. I can't write papers without help. I can't handle disappointment without having a breakdown, and I don't know how to maintain friendships without drama. Dad cleared his throat. Dr. Martinez helped us understand that we thought we were protecting Emma by solving her problems, but we were actually preventing her from developing the skills she needs to be successful in life. And we were using you as a buffer, Mom added, looking directly at me. Whenever Emma's behavior became overwhelming for us to handle, we'd expect you to step in and manage her emotions. That wasn't fair to you, and it wasn't good for Emma either. The most significant moment came when Mom pulled out a folder of documents. These are the financial records you asked about, she said, sliding the folder across the table to me. The college fund information, the receipts for Emma's activities, everything. We want you to see exactly what happened and understand that we're committed to making it right. I opened the folder and found complete documentation of my college fund, including the amounts that had been diverted to Emma's expenses over the past 3 years. The total was substantial, nearly $8,000 that should have been available for my education. We've already contacted the bank about setting up a payment plan to restore your full college fund, Dad said. It might take us a year to replace all of it, but we're committed to doing so. Emma reached into her backpack and pulled out a small gift bag. I know this doesn't make up for anything, but I wanted you to have this. Inside was a simple silver watch with an inscription on the back, "To the best big brother, I'm sorry for taking so long to grow up." Emma, I used my allowance money to buy it. she said quickly. I know it's not expensive, but I wanted to get you something that was really from me, not from mom and dad's money. The gesture was small, but it represented the first time Emma had sacrificed something of her own to acknowledge someone else's feelings. Over the following weeks, the changes in my family were gradual but genuine. Emma started attending weekly therapy sessions to work on emotional regulation and problem-solving skills. My parents began couples counseling to address their enabling patterns and communication issues. Most importantly, they established new family rules with consistent consequences. Emma was responsible for her own homework with tutoring support available, but not automatic rescuing. She had to earn privileges through responsible behavior rather than demanding them through emotional outbursts. The transformation wasn't instant or perfect. Emma still had difficult days when she fell back into old patterns. But the difference was that my parents no longer immediately capitulated to her demands, and they no longer expected me to absorb the emotional fallout. 3 weeks after our family dinner, Grandpa Thomas organized a belated 21st birthday celebration. The entire extended family attended along with Sarah's family and several of my college friends. It was everything my original birthday party should have been, focused on celebrating my milestone and achievements rather than managing someone else's crisis. During the party, Emma gave a short speech that surprised everyone. I know this celebration is 3 weeks late because of my selfishness, she said, standing up with a microphone that Grandpa Thomas had brought. I spent most of my life thinking that my problems were more important than anyone else's happiness. I was wrong and I'm sorry. She paused, looking directly at me. Jaden, you leaving home was the best thing that could have happened to our family, even though it didn't feel like it at the time. You showed all of us that love doesn't mean enabling bad behavior, and that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is refuse to participate in dysfunction. The room was quiet as she continued. I'm learning how to be a better sister and a better person. I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it. And I want everyone to know that Jaden didn't abandon our family. He saved it. By the end of my junior year, our family had achieved a new equilibrium. I maintained my own apartment and independence, but I was able to participate in family activities without feeling responsible for managing everyone else's emotions. Emma had learned to handle age-appropriate responsibilities and was developing genuine friendships based on mutual respect rather than drama. My parents had grown too learning to see their children as separate individuals with different needs rather than trying to manage us as a single emotional unit. The most profound change was in my relationship with Emma. Without the constant pressure of being her emotional caretaker, we could interact as siblings rather than as surrogate parent and dependent child. She still came to me for advice occasionally, but she also brought her own insights and solutions to problems. One evening in late spring, as I was finishing my junior year finals, Emma called me with news about her grades. Jaden, I got a B+ on my algebra final, she said, and I could hear genuine pride in her voice. I studied for it myself, used the tutoring center when I got stuck, but I didn't need anyone to do the work for me. Emma, that's fantastic. How did it feel? It felt amazing, she said. Like scary while I was doing it, but amazing afterward. I actually understood the problems instead of just copying someone else's work. That's what real accomplishment feels like, I told her. It's uncomfortable while you're struggling, but the pride you feel afterward is entirely your own. As I hung up the phone, I reflected on the journey our family had taken. My decision to leave home hadn't been about punishment or revenge. It had been about refusing to enable a destructive dynamic that was hurting everyone involved. Sometimes loving someone means setting boundaries that force them to grow. Sometimes the most caring thing you can do is step back and allow people to experience the consequences of their choices. And sometimes saving a family requires being willing to leave it. The life lesson that emerged from this experience was profound. We cannot love people into health by absorbing their dysfunction. Real love requires the courage to allow others to struggle, grow, and develop their own strength. Enabling destructive behavior isn't kindness. It's a form of control that prevents people from becoming their best selves. My family learned that healthy relationships require mutual respect, individual responsibility, and appropriate boundaries. We discovered that crisis doesn't have to be the norm, and that peace is possible when everyone takes responsibility for their own emotional well-being. Most importantly, we learned that sometimes the person who seems to be breaking the family apart is actually the one brave enough to show everyone how broken it already was. Today, as I prepare for my senior year of college, I'm grateful for the courage I found to step away from dysfunction and create space for healing. My relationship with my family is stronger now because it's based on genuine respect rather than obligation and manipulation. Emma is thriving in her junior year of high school, having learned to navigate challenges with resilience rather than emotional outbursts. My parents have rebuilt their marriage on a foundation of healthy communication and shared responsibility, and I've learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to participate in patterns that hurt everyone involved. The path to healing wasn't easy, but it was necessary, and the strength I discovered in standing up for my own worth became the foundation for building healthier relationships with everyone I care about. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice to protect your own well-being, even when it meant disappointing people you love? Sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most meaningful growth both for ourselves and for the people around us. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video to help others find it who might need to hear this message. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about overcoming family challenges and building healthier relationships. And please share this with anyone who might be struggling with similar family dynamics. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in these experiences can make all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that you deserve to be treated with respect and consideration in all your relationships. Your worth isn't determined by how much dysfunction you're willing to absorb from others. Here's to building families and relationships based on love, respect, and healthy boundaries.